How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
is the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final scene of
What up, everyone? Well, it's another day that ends in Y. And that must mean that James Lindsay is still being retarded. there, there's just like no getting around it. If it's a day that ends in Y, James Lindsay is doing something retarded on Twitter or on YouTube or any number of other places. And you know what? I see it as my responsibility to be covering this insanity. I see it as a service that I'm doing to the world. I see and it's just really funny. Yep. James cannot escape the land of retardia. He never stopped being retarded. James Lindsay is a self-admitted liberal Democrat trying to infiltrate the GOP. Conservatives need to tell him to go back to the DNC. Yeah, they do. Yeah. Oh, but he provides good content, bro, and all the MILFs want to fuck him. You know, whatever. Listen, man, I really think, I keep saying this, I really think this is good for us. We have been waiting for people to realize that James has been selling them a bill of goods on what the far left is for, like, well, a year now. And, you know, I like to think that we had a little something to do with his meltdown, being that we've been on his ass for a year. And he just keeps spiraling on his own, man. He just keeps spiraling on his own. It's getting worse and worse and worse. Did you guys see the latest? The latest started yesterday. Because yesterday, the Catholic Church, and I don't really understand all the nuances of this, but apparently the Vatican has created some sort of mascot that it is using to appeal to young people. Specifically, I believe young people in Japan. Now, I don't like anime. I think anime is dumb. No offense to people who like anime. I know all of you are very defensive about the fact that you like anime, and all of you really want me to like anime as much as you do, but I'm sorry, I don't like anime. I just don't. And that's okay. You're allowed to like anime, and I'm allowed to not like anime. But I understand why, you know, if you are the Catholic Church and you're trying to appeal to, like, young people, you might create some sort of, like, anime-looking mascot. And apparently they named it Luce, which means light in Italian. given that the Vatican is, well, it's in its own city, but given that that city is in Rome, it does make sense that they would use Italian language when, naming their creatures or whatever this is. And so this was announced yesterday. And what do you think? What do you think James Lindsay's reaction to this was? Does anyone want to take a wild guess about, there's this cute little anime thing with big eyes and is wearing a cross and has a staff, and I'm sure that's some sort of like Catholic symbolism for something, because Catholics are very into symbolism. I don't know what it's symbolism for. Maybe a Catholic in the chat can explain it to me. But does anyone want to guess what James Lindsay's reaction was to this thing? It's not that it was Gnostic. It's not that it was Gnostic. It's even better than that. Yeah. It's satanic. Yeah. James thinks that this is satanic. I'm not even kidding. James Lindsay thinks that this little Catholic anime doll with a cross, James thinks that this is an homage to Satan. Yes. Lucifer. Yeah. Yeah, he does. And I'm going to prove that. Here's, so this is James Lindsay retweeting Logan Lansing, who is the other brainchild behind the Queering of the American Child book that doesn't mention capitalism, even though the whole goal of queer is to abolish capitalism. Logan Lansing wrote a whole book about queer, didn't even mention capitalism once, bragged about it on Twitter. So this is the other half of the brain trust that wrote an entire goddamn book about queer. I should not be blasphemous when I'm talking about this. I really need to work on the blasphemy, okay? I want to be respectful. But, like, they wrote a whole damn book about queer, didn't mention capitalism once. It's like, it doesn't even occur to these people. But Logan Lansing's reaction to this was, Lucifer, the bearer of light, a name traditional in Christianity for the leaders of the devils, an angel who was cast out of heaven into hell. Lucifer is identified to say the bearer of the light, the morning star. So because this is this little doll's name is Luce, which means light in Italian, James and Logan have decided that this is code word for Lucifer. That's not even the only thing. Like, this person tweeted it. James has been retweeting this person a lot. And then James says, that is a witch's stang. So not only is this doll code for Lucifer in the land of James, they're holding a witch's staff. Yep, seems likely. And now James is saying, it's just like Margaret Mead. And listen, man, all I had to do was do, like, a quick Google search to find an instance of the Pope seeming to hold the staff that looks like that doll. I don't know what this is all about, but I do know that the Pope does not end up in situations that are not highly controlled, right? And so I have a hard time believing that the Pope would just accident himself, his way into holding a witch's stang by accident. I don't know. But it got better. It got better because James just kept going today. James says, I need a Jonathan Pageau video explaining how Lucifer is really a positive symbol and a witch's stang is actually a symbol of bringing peace. Oh, wait, well, almost need an update for our new friend Luce. So James is doubling down on this is all satanic. And then do you know what their new evidence is? Is they found this thing. I don't know what this is. Like a poster, some sort of engraving. I don't know what it is. James retweeted this. And their newest evidence for the fact that the Catholic doll is really Lucifer is that this picture is blue and the doll has blue hair. So or eyes, I'm sorry. The doll has blue eyes. And so because this picture of Lucifer is blue and the doll has blue eyes, that is absolute proof that this is Satan. You can't make this up, guys. It's like James and his friends have gone full on QAnon conspiracy where they've got all the strings on the wall, like this poster is blue and this eye is blue and then oh my god. Yeah, this is GAnon. This is Gnosticanon. And then Michael O'Fallon, who funds James Lindsay, gets in on the situation, and he says, please note that the Vatican's Luce project is an ethnically diverse project. Not one child across the globe will be disenfranchised by the Vatican's Luciferian idol project. Listen, man, and so I do wonder, how do they explain all of the other children that don't have blue hair or blue eyes? Because I was assured by James that because this poster is blue and Luce has blue eyes, that means that Luce is satanic. Like, this is what we're dealing with, guys. This is real. This is real. These are people that are informing millions of people who just want to know what the left is doing. And this is the tangent that James Lindsay has gone down, which is that all Catholics are evil and they are worshiping a doll that is satanic because it has blue eyes. I swear to God. I swear. And again, I don't know everything about Catholic symbolism. I quite frankly don't actually really care that much. But like, it just seems to me to be a bit of a stretch. And I have to continue to ask this question. If James is so unhinged about this, then what else is he unhinged about? Then how many other ways has he lied to millions of people about what's going on? How many people who just want to be informed about all the crazy stuff going on in the world? How many people have come to James looking for help because James is the person that was lifted up by Moms for Liberty, that was lifted up by Turning Point USA, that was lifted up by fucking Joe Rogan, that was lifted up by all of these influencers as the guy that was going to save us all. And he's just been lying to people for years because at some point a screw came loose. There was a time when James did really good work. There was a time when I was very inspired by James's work. I will never take that away from him. But at some point, someone needs to start, someone that is not me, needs to start acknowledging that James Lindsay has lost his shit. And now James is on this tangent about the woke right. And he has declared that he is no longer going to teach people about the left because now his sole focus is defeating the woke right menace. Of course, he deems me to be part of the woke right. He says I'm a Gnostic. He says I'm a... What else did he call me? Did he call me like a Zoroastrian or something like that? I don't even know what he called me. He called me all these things. He said that I worshipped at the altar of the satanic Archangel Michael, even though I don't, and like all this stuff. And I'm not, and I am just one of many people that James has accused of being as part of the woke right, because we like to, have conversations that James Lindsay doesn't approve of, and we don't believe that classical liberalism is going to save us. At the end of the day, that's really what James wants. James believes, and I presented evidence to back this up before, James believes that the entire Republican Party should be a classical liberal party, and that anyone who is not a classical liberal is part of the woke right, and they're no different than the woke left. So the only way that you can be in James Lindsay's good graces is to be a classical liberal that goes along with everything that James says and does. I personally think that's bullshit. I disagree. I do not consent. And so every once in a while, James likes to tell people it's every single day, but it's not every single day. But every once in a while, we take some time to tune in to the insanity and the bullshit that James is perpetrating. And James has a couple things out that I want to listen to. Now, we're going to start off. I don't know how far we're going to get. We might actually only get through one thing. We're going to start out by listening to this new podcast that he released yesterday. This is about a half hour. What is the woke right? That is a very good question, Jimmy. That is a very good question indeed. So we're going to listen to that, and we're going to see how far we get with that. Now, I would also like to listen to this presentation at some point this week, Communism 101, Theoretical Communism. I would like my audience that has watched communism and socialism with me for years, that has seen real socialists and real communists over and over and over and over and over again, talking about what they think. I would like us to do the work to compare our expertise about communism and socialism. And I do mean our, it's not just me. It's people who've been watching this stuff with me for years. I want us to compare our expertise with James's ideas about what communism is. Maybe we'll get to that today, maybe we won't. Maybe we'll get partway into it. Who knows what the day will bring. But this is going to be James Lindsay is a retard day. And I need everyone to be on board with that. And you know what? We don't do what James does. James will go on his Twitter account to 500,000 people and he'll say, Carlin is a malignant narcissist with borderline personality disorder, and she has violent sexual fantasies about me because she made a joke 3 years ago that I didn't like. Yeah, James is going to say, Carlin's obsessed with me. James's fans are going to go, Carlin is literally stalking him. We don't stoop to that level here. What we do is we listen to the things that James says, and we put forward intellectual arguments for why he's a fucking retard and why he needs to sit in his wrongness and accept that he's wrong. But we're not going to do character assassination. We're not going to do ad hominem attacks. We're not going to stoop to the level that James Lindsay has gone to. All of our argumentation, unless I really get pushed into a corner, all of our argumentation, because don't think I don't have dirt on this asshole that I'm just sitting on. I'm just saying I do, but I really want our argumentation to be intellectual. I want it to be about ideas, and I want it to be, frankly, several notches above the normal bullshit that happens on the internet. Can we call him retarded? Yes. Yes. We can, Jane. We can. I'm pretty sure I made that clear with the title of this stream. We can indeed call him retarded. And we will. Many times over. So that's what we're going to be doing today, guys. We're going to be listening to James Lindsay's latest round of woke right bullshit, and we're going to talk about it, and maybe we'll look at some of the comments that James is getting and stuff like that, because James's audience is as unhinged as he is, and you know what? That's not their fault. That's James's fault for making them unhinged. Listen, man, the audience follows the lead of the creator. This is why I'm such a hard ass with people. This is why I maintain a very high level of evidentiary standard. This is why I don't burst into hysterics all the time just for clicks and clout on the fucking internet, because I don't want to create a group of unhinged, unmanageable retards in my chat. This is why my chat is one of the nicest places to be on the internet. There's no bullshit. There's no nonsense. There's no chaos. It's just actual people who are interested in solving problems and interested in hinging into reality. That is the environment that I have cultivated to, quite frankly, my detriment, because it would have been a lot easier for me to cultivate an environment of unhinged retardery, just like James has done. But I feel like this is the better way to do it long term. And also, I want to maintain my sanity, and that's the way it is. But James hasn't done that. His audience is unhinged. And we're going to see that. Do any of his followers, listeners challenge him? No. Well, if you challenge James on something, he'll block you. And I know that because people come into my feed all the time. They're like, Carlin, I followed James for years. I supported his work. I just asked him one question and he blocked me. I was like, oh, well. Well, Jimmy. Well, Jimmy Jim Jib. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? See, people think I have a trigger block. No. I've got nothing on James. People can ask me questions if they want. Now, I will not deal with personal insults. I won't deal with nonsense and chaos. But if someone comes to me with a good faith question about my work, I will try to teach them. If someone just calls me a name, they're going to get blocked because that's not a good faith question. But James doesn't do that. Not only does James block people who ask him good faith questions about his work, he tells his entire audience to block them too. A little bit unhinged. So this is what we're going to be doing today. Now, before we get into it, couple updates, couple orders of business. Number one, if you want to support the work I'm doing, as always, please head over to my Substack. That is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Sign up for a membership of $8 a month, $80 a year. I am 100% funded by you guys. You guys keep me in business. I cannot do this without your support because I don't have any big donors funding my work because I refuse to take orders from other people. And so if you guys want to keep me in business, you guys want to keep me streaming, you want to keep me writing, make sure you sign up for a membership over on the Substack. I really do appreciate it. Now, what I'm doing this week is I'm really keeping my head down and I'm trying to bang out a whole bunch of chapters for my next book. And you can actually access those chapters as I'm writing them over on my Substack. That is speaksocialist.substack.com. I have launched 3 new chapters in the last day or so. I'm hoping to launch a whole bunch this week. I got a bunch that are in progress. And so there's going to be a lot of content coming out from this Substack. But this Substack is where you can actually read my next book before it actually becomes a book. You're going to get access to the draft chapters before I release them. This is a premium Substack. This is completely separate from my other Substack. It does require an additional fee. I'm sorry if that pisses people off, but it is a premium thing. It's only $10 a month or $100 a year. You guys are basically funding the writing of my next book, which I really do appreciate. I'm really trying to get as much done as possible because I want to have all of the draft chapters done, or at least the majority of it done and edited and all that stuff by November 9th. What is happening on November 9th? I'm going on a road trip. On November 9th, it's not going to be a total vacay because there's going to be content coming out of it, but I'm taking a week off, okay? And I'm going to go do something fun for myself with a friend of mine, and we're going to meet up with other friends on the road, and we're going to drive from roundabout Sacramento, California to Dallas, Texas. We're going to go through a whole bunch of states. We're going to make content along the way. We're going to go see cool stuff, and I'm going to take some time off because I need to keep my sanity, and I know you guys support that, but I'm really working on just getting this damn book done before I leave for that road trip because I really want to get it out by like December at the latest. So that is the plan, and that's what I'm working on. You can access this at speaksocialist.substack.com. You can see the chapters as they are coming out. They're draft chapters. You need to be aware of that. They are drafts. It is not going to be the final version. I still need to go through and link all the voice and all the style and all that stuff. So I ask you to be forgiving. There may in fact be typos. There may be things. Let me know in the comments if you find typos. Let me know if you want me to cover stuff I'm not covering. All that stuff. One of the cool things about doing the book in this way is you guys get to give me feedback on what I'm doing literally as I'm doing it. So it's gonna be a lot of content coming out of this. This is gonna be my primary focus for the next couple of weeks or so, and I really appreciate you guys allowing me to do this. I'm really excited about this book. I think this book is going to be really helpful, especially for people who are newer to the work. That way we give them a way to kind of like get into the topic of socialism in a way that's going to be much more manageable. And, you know, James was like basically tiptoeing around this topic. He was starting to say, "Oh, I've been telling people to decode the language of the left for years." And so I'm trumping him, be like, "Oh, have you, asshole? Have you? Okay. Well, not only have I been running classes on it longer than you've been talking about it, I'm going to have a book out on it before you even start writing it. So suck my dick, James. I don't really care. The world needs this and not your Gnostic bullshit. It's going to be the real stuff based on what the real far left is saying, and that's just going to be the way it goes." So again, that is speaksocialist.substack.com, where you can access that information. Now, some of you have asked me, and I don't want anyone to feel any obligation about this, okay? I really don't. But some of you have asked how you can, like, donate money for the road trip with Siggy, who I'm going with, and we're going to be driving around, and we're going to go create content with some people, and we're going to be creating content from the road and all that stuff. Some of you have asked me how you can donate, and I promised you I was going to set up a separate way for you guys to like send in donations. If you want to, I don't want anyone to feel any obligation, okay? But I do have Cash App and Venmo set up for that. I'm Dr. Carlin B on both. If you want to donate to it, I'm going to be doing a big fundraiser for it on election night because it would be like awesome. Like, I mean, we're gonna need hotels on the road. We're gonna need like food. We're gonna need gas, stuff like that. And it would, and you know, one of the reasons we're doing this is Siggy lost his job, and you know, he's working on getting another job and all that. But he said like one of the reasons he wanted to do a road trip was like he's like, I've never had this much time off before. And you know what? One of the reasons I really do appreciate Siggy is like his trust in God and his trust that everything will be okay is inspiring to me. And so if people want to give money to help us do cool stuff on the road, I think that would be really great. If you don't want to, that's fine too. You can fund my work in other ways, but I wanted to make sure people knew that option was available. If you wanted it, people are asking like to stop, like we're gonna be on it. Like okay, Siggy is a man, and because Siggy is a man, he has not sat down to actually start planning the road trip yet. And I keep threatening, I keep being like, I can woman this situation. Like, I can just do it, but this is your road trip. And so I know people are asking, like, are you going to go here? Are you going to go there? We haven't planned it yet because he is being a man, okay? And so he promises me that we're going to talk on Thursday about the schedule for this road trip. And it is his road trip. I'm just tagging along, okay? And so I don't know exactly the details yet, but that's part of the fun of a road trip, right? And so everyone's just got to hold off on that. I don't know anything about this. Have I met him in real life? Nope. I have not met him in real life. This whole thing is a little bit of a leap of faith, okay? It's a little bit of a leap of faith, but it feels like the right thing to do for some reason. And yeah, so anyway, more to come on the content road trip with Siggy. But if you guys want to give, that's a way you can give. And of course, the last way you guys can support, but you know what, I think it'll be fine. I'm not worried about it. I really do think it'll be fine. Yeah, well, he wasn't at AFPAC. He didn't go to AFPAC. So, yeah, I went to AFPAC with the other Groypers, and that was fine. And I've talked to him quite a bit, and, you know, I'm not worried that he's going to be an axe murderer or anything. It'll be fine. If anything happens to me, everyone's going to know exactly who did it, right? Anyway, guys, last way you can support the work I'm doing is by heading over to the Unwoke Art Store, where there is just 2 more days. Just a couple more days to get your anti-communist Halloween merch. This is special limited edition merch come November 1st. It will no longer be in the store. And we got 4 designs for you. We got Marxism is coming for your soul. We've got collectivism. We've got everyone is equal until they're not. And we've got the most popular design of this particular series, the Marxist Utopia of the Dead. Those designs are available in t-shirts, in sweatshirts, on pint glasses, on mugs, and on a sticker pack. All of those things are going to go away on November 1st. So if you want any of those designs, now's the time to pick them up because they are limited edition. And once they go away, they may never, ever, 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 ever come back. And you can get those in the Unwoke Art Store right now. And I really hope you do. Yo, Halloween, I don't even have a costume. I need to go get a witch's hat or something. I need to go get some sort of costume. We'll see. Anyway, let's get into it, shall we? Let us get into it. Who is ready to listen to James Lindsay being retarded? Yeah, I haven't bought candy. We don't really get any trick-or-treaters. I basically take a giant bowl and I put some candy in it. I leave it out on the stoop. And it's like the honor system. And that way, if children do come by, they can take whatever they want, really. And if there's any leftovers, then I guess we get them. But I haven't even gotten candy yet. I'm going to go do that tomorrow. I will make sure the children have candy. We don't want to get a trick or anything. All right, guys, please mount the like button if you're ready to listen to James being a retard. Please make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We are going to be listening to his latest bullet podcast that's half an hour long. What is the woke right? Oh, we're getting a commercial. Of course, we're getting a goddamn commercial. Why are we getting a commercial? There we go.
Hey everybody, it's James Lindsay. Welcome to another episode of New Discourses Bullets, where I give a short bullet point type summary of a single topic from woke Marxism that we all need to understand so we can stop
Marxism.
it. And in this case, I'm not talking about woke the way I usually do. I'm talking about a
Not
woke
talking about
right,
Marxism
not a
either.
woke left. We're all very familiar with the woke left. If you're a listener to this podcast, at least I'm sure. And if not, I have about
No,
800.
James, your listeners are not familiar with the woke left, and that is actually exactly the problem. Your listeners think they are familiar with the woke left, but they are in fact not familiar with the woke left, at least the ones that have been only listening to you in the last couple of years, because you have been lying to them about what the woke left is, and you've been pretending for years, and so your audience thinks they understand what's going on, but they really have no fucking idea, and that is exactly the point.
100 billion hours of podcasts, that's hyperbole, you can go listen to get familiar with the woke left if this is your first exposure somehow to what's been happening in our country for the last 10 to 50 years, depending on how you want to count it. But I want to talk about the woke right. Now, the controversy around the woke right is A, that it exists, and B, if that's the right name for it. And that's a complicated question. I don't know if calling it the woke right is the right way to go. I'll put that card straight on the table. It might deserve a different name. We could call it, I think finding a name for radical splinter movements is difficult. There was a lot of fighting over the woke left, or just the woke, as we tend to call it, a number of years ago. And that fighting, for a long time, people called it the regressive left. And that term didn't stick. Partly because it's so progressive that people had a hard time understanding how it is regressive. Secondly, if you ask my opinion, regressive has too damn many syllables in it. You have to have extremely simple terminology, not necessarily conceptually simple, but
James is talking about the fact that you have to have extremely simple terminology. Has James ever listened to any of his own podcasts? Has James ever read any of his own books? James does not explain things in extremely simple terminology. That is also part of the problem.
In linguistic structure for it to stick. Regressive left certainly did not stick, and it ended up being called woke. And I remember the fights over whether or not it should be called woke or regressive.
Got a Rumble rant. Marx lives over on Rumble, $5. After Israel replaces the woke left with their own dissident America First voices, we'll need to work hard to discredit people like Lindsay to moderate the Trump admin. It will be a hard battle. Listen, man, I've been trying to discredit James Lindsay for a full year now. And again, intellectually, I'm not making character assassinations. I'm going purely on the basis of what I see to be intellectual failings in his work. In regards to like the whole America First voices will need to work hard to discredit people like Lindsay to moderate the Trump administration. I don't know, man. I don't know. And what I mean by that is that I tried to work with the America First people. I tried to specifically work with the America First people on discrediting James Lindsay. When one of those America First people, or someone who claims to be, Chris Burnett, went on a massive coke binge fucking bender, I spoke up and I said, I don't think we can trust him yet. I was resoundingly excommunicated, and it was made very clear to me that I wasn't wanted around. And so I'm kind of doing my own thing here. I'm doing my own thing. I've always done my own thing. I'm doing it my way. I'm doing it in the way that I feel is best. And insofar as like the America First crowd, there are many people that I love and appreciate in that crowd. But guess what? After they resoundingly excommunicated me for saying that I don't think we can trust Chris Burnett, 48 hours later, Chris Burnett flamed the fuck out on Twitter, and they were all like, what happened? How could we possibly predict that Chris Burnett was going to flame out on Twitter? They were complaining about him. I heard about it from multiple people, and it's like, do I ever get an apology for the fact that you assholes resoundingly excommunicated me for saying, I don't think we can trust him in private? And, so good luck to the America First movement and all the things that they're doing, but I tried. I was the adult in the room. I was shown the door and told that resoundingly I was not wanted. And so I'm going to do my own thing, and I wish them the very best. And this is no shade on Nick Fuentes, who I adore and I think does great work. But I'm not going to be fucking treated like that. And so I will take someone's apology anytime, which will never happen, if they want to do that. But until then, I'm doing my own thing. That's how I feel about it. Thank you for the Rumble rant. I really do appreciate it.
Left is more descriptive, and there I think there might have been other terms. I don't remember. Probably something to do with progressivism, but we were all trying to find a term. We called the academic stuff grievance studies instead of woke or woke studies back in the day. We were all looking for terms to describe the woke phenomenon, and now woke stuck. We're stuck with woke. If woke wasn't the right term, and I think it was, and I'll explain why in this episode, then if it wasn't, well, too bad for us. We picked a bad term. Of course, I've expanded to saying that woke is shorthand for something called woke Marxism. So now we face a similar problem on the right. There is a movement happening on the right. It is like the woke, variegated. I know that's a fancy word. There's a variety of different positions that might generally be described by whatever label we're looking for, that we might call broadly, to stick with the lingo of this podcast, which again I'm saying is provisional, that we might call woke right. Broadly speaking, that movement has some unsavory characters. It has been called in the past, I think, the alt-right to a degree, but then that died. The far right, the left likes to call it, but it's not clear what the far right refers to. In fact, with the woke right, which is a term that I'm still content with for the moment, it doesn't seem to be right-wing at all, at least
it's
not if we understand the woke, or sorry, if we not.
As a reminder, James Lindsay thinks that classical liberal is right-wing. He literally thinks that being a liberal is right-wing.
If we understand left and right in terms of their operating systems as opposed to their external features. And I think that operating system argument is why I'm calling this thing the woke right. But in its broad expression, it's very skeptical of the narratives that it has received. It chooses to engage in revisionist versions of history and also of current events that fit within its ideological framework. Its ideological framework might be kind of close to the mainstream. The character out there of Tucker Carlson is fairly famously a Pat Buchanan-style paleoconservative that's fairly close to the mainstream. He seems to be in or on the edge of or just outside of, I'm not sure exactly where to place him in his ideological beliefs, at least adjacent to or slightly within the woke right, but he's certainly not in the deep end of the woke right. But he has, as a paleoconservative, certain.
So now James has evolved his position from Tucker Carlson is absolutely on the woke right because he interviewed a historian I don't like, to Tucker Carlson is just woke right adjacent. He's just woke right light. Okay.
Strong views toward traditionalism. He has certain, and the movement more broadly following him has certain strong views toward traditionalism, certain skeptical views toward the state of Israel, deep skeptical views toward the legitimacy of not just what they call the deep state or the intelligence apparatus of the United States, but perhaps the United States entirely, and similarly extending into the UK and Britain. There seems to be at least skepticism toward class.
Does James, he's going to complain about how they don't like classical liberals in a second. Does James not have skepticism towards the intelligence community in the US? Is that really how we're defining the woke right now? That you have skepticism towards the intelligence community in the US? That you have skepticism about what's going on in the UK? Guys, you can get put in jail in the UK for social media posts that the government doesn't like. Like, and I'm not even talking about like violence or anything like that. I'm saying like, if you make a comment about immigration and not liking immigration in the UK, you can be put in jail. So that seems a little ridiculous to me. I think any thinking rational person, Like, let's put aside the Israel stuff, which why Americans have to be beholden to any fucking foreign power. Like, Israel is not America. Let's just put that aside for a second. You're telling me that I'm not allowed to be skeptical of the intelligence apparatus in the United States? That doesn't make any fucking sense, James.
Classical liberalism that sometimes extends into a profound skepticism or an outright rejection of the U.S. Constitution. There seems to be some blurring around the edges as to whether or not they understand clearly that the United States' tradition, the classical liberal tradition or American classical liberal tradition, is a descendant of what's called Scottish common sense realism, as opposed to the French or German Enlightenment, which were romantic and idealistic in their orientation. The Scottish tradition was based in common sense, like Thomas Paine, and was based in realism, as in the philosophical belief that the real world exists external to us and is objective in its existence. Romanticism and idealism from the French and German Enlightenments do not agree with this. And much in the Enlightenment that we consider the Enlightenment that gets criticized is in fact very deserving of that criticism that it receives, because it is mysticism. But it does not do to confuse that with the Scottish common sense tradition, which is sometimes called the Scottish Enlightenment, or considered broadly part of the Enlightenment, not least because of David Hume and his role in that broader thing that probably confusingly gets called the Enlightenment, James. Which is it's too low resolution, it's too broad of a brush to understand. So you see skepticism toward the Enlightenment and skepticism toward the fruit of the Enlightenment being liberalism, which is taking kind of the French liberal tradition and traditional liberals like John Stuart Mill, and then classical liberals who are of the Scottish common sense realist line, like Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, in particular James Madison, because he was the author of our Constitution, and blending them together in a confused way. So that's the very near end of this pool, but this pool gets dark pretty quick. At the far end of the pool, we have agitators like the so-called Groyper group.
The Groyper
America
group.
First is how they brand themselves, led by a character named Nick Fuentes, who is a very curious individual for a lot of reasons I don't need to get into. But there we see not just extraordinary skepticism of Israel, but outright hatred and blame and scapegoating of Jews that reproduce precisely the errors committed in analysis, the hasty generalization or false generalization.
Has James ever actually listened to Nick? One in the chat if you think that James has actually ever listened to Nick. Two in the chat if you think that James has seen clips of Nick on Twitter that have been taken out of context to make Nick look like an insane person, and he's judged everything that Nick believes based on comedy that Nick was doing to entertain his audience. One if you think that James has actually ever listened to Nick. Two if you think that James has judged him based on comedy that's taken out of context. Yeah, it's a lot of twos. It's a lot of twos. I'm sorry, guys. Listen, no one has to like Nick Fuentes, but the fact, and I'm going to be very clear, there are absolutely things I disagree with Nick on. There really are. But most of the stuff that you see about Nick on Twitter is Nick doing a comedy routine because he's funny, and the Groypers having a very specific sense of subversive humor. And they have a very specific culture where they laugh at things that are subversive and outlandish and things you're not supposed to talk about and things like that. And most of the time when you're seeing clips of Nick on Twitter, he's doing comedy to entertain his audience. And it's usually, though not always, not actually the analysis that he's doing. And the analysis that he does tends to be very good. And again, you don't have to agree with him on everything to acknowledge the fact that he's not actually the insane person that he's portrayed as. He's not a hateful person. He doesn't hate anyone. He has never once in the last year plus that I've been listening to him talked about the annihilation of Israel. He's never talked about the annihilation of the Jews. He's never talked about anything like that. So, Yeah, they always clip right before the part Nick says, I'm just kidding around, because a lot of it's just jokes.
Done by Adolf Hitler when he was writing Mein Kampf, where they have just noticed, they're always just noticing things and just asking questions.
Why aren't you allowed to notice
They've just
things?
happened to notice that, for example, lots of the progressives in the world are Jewish, or lots of Jews are progressives is maybe a better way to phrase that.
True.
And that the Frankfurt School of neo-Marxists was predominantly of ethnically Jewish people who were certainly communists as their religion.
Is that wrong? Is that wrong? The Frankfurt School, the communists that came to America in the 30s to set up shop at Columbia University, they were almost all Jewish. Is that wrong? Is that factually incorrect? Why can't we talk about that? The issue here is that James is and always was a disaffected liberal who is mad that there are people on the right who are actual... Yeah, I mean, I think this is actually correct. Listen, man, I came from the left. I understand being a disaffected liberal. I never called myself a classical liberal. I was actually very specific that I was like, I'm not a classical fucking liberal. Like, I called myself a liberal for a long time, but I was never a classical liberal. And then over the years of being involved in this space, my perspective changed. And people can believe that evolution was real or not. I quite frankly don't really care because I had my evolution live on the internet. So people can go back and watch. But my ideas about the world changed. And I look at people like James now, or any of these other like classical liberal characters that are trying to make everyone else a classical liberal, and I'm like, you want us to lose. That's how I feel about it. If you are embracing a classical liberal ideology, you want us to lose. And you want us to lose to the Marxist left. That's actually who I'm worried about at the end of the day. I'm not going to sit here and go, it's the Jews, it's the Jews. I'm not going to do that. Because even though I will absolutely say that the majority of the people in the Frankfurt School were fucking Jewish, even though I will absolutely say the majority of the leaders in the Russian Revolution were fucking Jewish, even though I will absolutely say Hitler was fighting the Marxists. You can watch old speeches where he's flat out talking about fighting the Marxists. And most of those Marxists were also Jewish. I will also say that I think that the problem that we're dealing with in the United States is a bigger problem than that. And I know, because I've been embedded with the far left for like years now, that the majority of activists that I see that are actually pushing the crazy ideas, they're not Jewish. I'm not going to say there aren't Jews involved. There are. But I think that the problem is much bigger that we're dealing with than it's the Jews, it's the Jews. And people cannot like me saying that all they want, but that's just reality. Now, you can talk about funding sources and all that, and that might be a fair point. But the fact of the matter is I firmly believe that, let's just say I could wave a magic wand today and eliminate the cuckery to Israel that exists in the United States. Is that a word? Cuckery? Maybe I just made that up. I don't know. Let's just say I could wave a magic wand today and that problem is solved. I don't think that actually is going to solve the problem of the far left. I think that the far left is much more set up than people realize to function separately from any funding sources that people believe they have, because most groups on the far left are not receiving a lot of funding. They're just not. And so I think the problem we have now is a much bigger problem. And it's not just the Jews, the Jews, the Jews. And you will never hear me saying it's just that, because I don't believe it is. And people can disagree with me all they want, but I don't really care. In my opinion, what is the most dangerous problem facing the American public today? The radical, revolutionary, far left. the socialist, communist, far left, the people I cover on this channel, that is the most dangerous problem facing the United States today, by far, and I don't think it's even close. I think they're going to have their socialist revolution in our lifetime. I think they're going to try to violently overthrow the government in like 10 to 15 years, tops. I think we've got two to three more, maybe four, if we're really lucky. I think we've got like maybe 3 or 4 more election cycles left for president before we are irrevocably effed. That's what I think. Is there a psychology term for stating true innocuous facts in a tone that implies they're bad when they mean nothing? I don't think so, but I'll have to think about that, Kyle. That's a good question. I don't know. Do you think the Frankfurt School is the most dangerous? Well, no, the Frankfurt School started the problem. The Frankfurt School was the origin point of the problem in the United States, but that was back in the 30s. They came to the US in the 30s. They came more like that was the start of the problem. We are now almost 100 years into the problem. So in the time between when the Frankfurt School came to the United States and now, the problem has grown and grown and grown to an exponential degree. The problem has evolved. The problem has morphed. The problem is at an almost unmanageable level. Even if it is manageable, I don't even know if it's still manageable. But this is the origin point. This is not the problem we're dealing with today, though. You get rid of the Frankfurt School today. The Frankfurt School still exists, by the way. You guys know this, right? The Frankfurt School, it still does exist. Get rid of it. It's not going to solve anything. It's not going to change anything. College professors who have taught, and it's not just in the colleges and universities, it's also in the K through 12 schools where basically every single teacher is teaching these ideas in the K through 12 schools. Let's keep going.
And so on and so forth, to conclude that the Jews are actually running an operation of stolen power to run the world to their own advantage, to the destruction of everybody else, including, referring to them as satanic and all of this. Nick Fuentes claims to be ultra Catholic. He
is
more
Catholic.
or less demands his followers follow or go to the Latin Mass, kind of very extreme traditionalist in that regard. They are extraordinary.
What's wrong with Catholics going to a Latin Mass? And by the way, no one forces the Groypers to be Catholic. Now, I will say this, I absolutely do believe the Catholic stuff is real. There was a time when I didn't believe the Catholic stuff was real. I thought it was just all a show. I thought it was all a game. I have now become friends with, many Groypers. It is very, very real. It's not a game. There are Groypers who will go through, RCIA? It's like they will go to classes every week for a year to become Catholic. It's a very, very big deal for them when they're confirmed in the Catholic Church. They talk about it all the time. They go to confession. They do all this stuff. I've talked to Groypers that worry. They thought out where they're like, I can't do that. I can't sing, Carlin, because I'm going to have to go to confession. Like, if they weren't real Catholics, they wouldn't care. I've been invited to go to Mass with the Groypers, and I will go when I have the opportunity to do so. Not that I'm a Catholic, but I'll be respectful of that. I know a lot of Catholics that love traditional Catholic Mass. What's wrong with that? And quite frankly, I think it's kind of an admirable thing, to be honest. Like, how many young men has Nick Fuentes brought to the Catholic Church? And why is that bad? Why is that bad? It gives them order in their life. It gives them structure. It seems to be, the Groypers are actually extremely pleasant to be around when they're not being little assholes on the internet. And I'll say this too, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I have interacted with a lot of different groups on the dissident right. There are groups that are way worse than the Groypers. Like, way worse. way more toxic, way more inflammatory, way more hateful. The Groypers are not hateful. They talk about how this is about love all the time. They don't hate anyone. And I think it's the Catholicism that has created that. And so even if I'm not a Catholic and I don't intend to become one, I have seen directly the influence that has had on many people who I consider to be friends. And so for James to say like, oh, this is so terrible, they're all traditional Catholics that are going to Latin Mass, does he even hear himself? For real, does he even hear himself?
Generally anti-gay. Everybody who they disagree with gets some kind of a slur attached to them for this. I have had all of them. It doesn't matter whether it's in the gay department or whether it's in the Jewish department or in the neocon department. They hate all of those things. But of course, distrust of neoconservatism is kind of the defining characteristic of paleoconservatism that's in the Tucker Carlson.
Okay, so now James is saying that if you don't like neoconservatives, that you're on the woke right. Okay.
Line. So Tucker Carlson does not have the same degree of hatred, as I see no visible or obvious hatred of Jews like you see with the Groypers, but you do see, and I see some isolationism and nativism on his end. What you see in extremists with Nick Fuentes' so-called America First movement, where in fact he has a extraordinarily narrow understanding of what qualifies as American and what needs to be put first.
Well, no, actually, in some respects, James is right. Nick does have an extremely narrow understanding of what qualifies as American. And what qualifies as American, and listen, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is my understanding. What Nick Fuentes qualifies as not America first is Israel. Why is that bad? Nick is actually very, very, very specific about this. We put the United States of America and the needs of American citizens ahead of Israel. That's what America first means. America comes before Israel. What the fuck is wrong with that? How many people in the country right now are struggling? How many people in the country right now are having a hard time putting food on the table? How many people in the country had their homes destroyed because of a hurricane? How many people in the country are rebuilding from that? How many people in the country in the past year have had their homes destroyed by a tragedy, whether that be, the train thing in Ohio or the fires in Hawaii? Or the hurricanes? None of those people have been taken care of. Do you know who has been taken care of? We have sent billions and tens of billions of dollars to Israel. Why wasn't that money given to American citizens? Why are we sending tens of billions of dollars to Israel? And by the way, I would say exactly the same thing about Ukraine. And I am literally married to a Ukrainian. Guys, do you know? Fun fact. My brother-in-law, my husband's brother, who my husband loves more than anyone, my brother-in-law is on the front. He's in the Ukrainian army because my husband is from Ukraine. His family is still in Ukraine. My husband's brother is on the front of the war in Ukraine. My husband gets a picture from him the other day. He's got a giant ass fucking hole in his arm. My brother-in-law literally just got fucking shot and put in the hospital because he's fighting in the Ukrainian army. Now he's fine. Everything's going to be fine. But I literally have family in the Ukraine war. I will be the very first to say we shouldn't fucking be funding that shit. And it probably would have been over a long time ago had we not been sending tens of billions of dollars to Ukraine. I said from the very beginning, and again, my husband is literally from there. My husband's family has had their home damaged by bombs that were being shot indiscriminately into their fucking city. My brother-in-law has now been shot in the fucking arm. We never should have been involved. We never should have sent them money. It never should have happened. And so I feel exactly the same way about Israel that I feel about Ukraine. And I'm not going to apologize for that. And I'm not going to get told I'm on the woke fucking right. Because I have more reason than most people to say, yeah, maybe we should just keep funding Ukraine. I have more reason than most, and my position on that has been very clear from the very fucking beginning. And Israel is not a special and unique fucking snowflake. And Israel certainly shouldn't be put ahead of the United States of America and American citizens, especially people who have lost everything, who haven't gotten shit from our government, because we just need to send more and more and more and more and more and more money to fucking Israel. That's what America first means. It means putting America and American citizens ahead of a foreign power, no matter who that foreign power is. Rottweiler, thank you for the super chat. He does hear himself. His thing is that he's trying so hard to appeal to the Protestant evangelical Christians and Jewish. When he announces his conversion, it will come with a juicy Daily Wire contract like Tim Pool, allegedly. Yeah. Yup. I agree with you. Thank you for the super chat.
And what's to be done with everybody who doesn't qualify according to that definition. That's a very extreme version. There are also on the extreme end who are not necessarily Nick Fuentes or his groypers, as they are called. There's also a phenomenon of proto-fascists openly supporting fascist dictators like Pinochet and Francisco Franco from Spain as having saved Spain from communism. The Spanish Civil War is a topic of great interest. These people like to read philosophers like Julius Evola, who was a fascist. They will all
Didn't both those dictators save their country from communism, though? Am I wrong about that? Is that wrong? Like, someone in the chat tell me, didn't both of those dictators save their country from communism? I've said this a million times. I'll say it again because I don't know who's new that's listening to me right now for the first time. In my heart of hearts, I am an anarcho-capitalist. I don't want the government to exist. However, I am also a realist, and I can look at a situation that's right in front of me and say, you know what? Maybe the way that I want to go on a personal level isn't actually going to work this time. And we need to be realistic about that. You might not like that there have been points in history that required a fascist dictator to save the country from communism. But sometimes that's just the hand you're dealt, man. Sometimes that is just the hand you're dealt. Do you want communism or do you want fascism? Choose. Choose. I know that under communism, I would not be allowed to own private property. I know that under fascism, I would be allowed to own private property. Choose. Sometimes we have to make decisions we don't like. But one of the antidotes to Antifa is FA. You know? Is it wrong to flirt with this idea? Is it wrong to consider this idea? It's a gamble. I think we can admit that. The wrong fascist dictator gets into power and it's all over. But what if the right dictator gets into power? I don't know. Why can't we... And here's really the problem that I have. Why can't we talk about this? Why can't we discuss this? Maybe if there was open discussion of this idea, instead of just demonizing every single person that even brings it up, come to the table and have an actual discussion about it. What is the hinged into reality problem that we are dealing with in the United States? How are we going to solve it? Stop fucking insulting people. Stop calling everyone who disagrees with you Gnostic and woke right. Have an actual discussion that is hinged into reality. People flirt with communism all the time. It's literally taught in the public schools. Why is it wrong to flirt with fascism as an antidote to communism, when provably in history it has actually worked before?
Also occasionally, read or report from Mussolini. They like to do edgy memes around Hitler.
Oh my
they
God,
like to do edgy memes around
Hitler.
Mussolini.
Oh my God,
they
not
are,
memes. No, not that.
Like I said, proto-fascists.
Anything
They frequently
that.
believe that we need something like an American Franco. You will hear them making jokes referencing Pinochet by talking about the need to give helicopter rides to communists. What that refers to is Pinochet's practice of getting communists out of his country by rounding them up, arresting them, putting them in helicopters, flying them out to sea, and throwing them out.
Does anyone have a problem with that? I'm not advocating for murder. I don't think anyone should be murdered. I would never advocate for violence. But do I like a good helicopter ride meme? Yeah, you're goddamn right I do. Yep. And again, James is having a fucking meltdown over a meme. And again, I do not believe in violence. This is not something I would ever do. I'm not advocating anyone ever do this. But in the future reality where I think that we are actually facing a communist takeover of the country, I really do think we are. Would I be opposed to dealing with that situation in a very, very severe way? If they were going to, if a group of fucking Marxists were going to violently overthrow the federal government, which I literally have them on video talking about doing. I have more than one clip of actual communists talking about violently overthrowing the U.S. government. If that were to happen, would I personally be opposed to dealing with that situation with very severe means? Nope. You want to know why? I don't want to live in a communist country. Full stop. I don't want to live in that country. It's not what I signed up for. It's not what the American dream is. It's not what American values are. I do not want it. And if those assholes are going to try to violently overthrow the United States to take control of it, I think that we have a right to defend ourselves, and I think we have a right to defend our way of life, and I think we have a right to defend what we want in the world. It's not just them who gets to decide what they want. It's we get to decide what we want too. Am I going to feel bad about there being memes on the fucking internet that talk about helicopter rides for literal communists? No. No, not in any way. No.
So that they would die in the ocean. If you didn't know what helicopter rides are about, that's what it was about. So there is a proto-fascist wing. Some people are explicitly pro-fascist, except one of the hardest things to tell, and one of the reasons why woke right might be the right term for these people, about this group is it's almost impossible to ever tell when they're serious.
It's not actually.
Tucker Carlson is more
it's not
obviously serious
actually.
most of the time, but when we get into this further reach, this deeper end of the pool, we see, and Nick Fuentes seems extraordinarily serious all the time, but with these proto-fascists, we see an awful lot of postmodern.
Nick Fuentes seems extraordinarily serious all the time. James has never actually watched Nick Fuentes. If James thinks that Nick Fuentes is extraordinarily serious at all times, he has never actually watched Nick's show. No, James. No. Wrong. No, he's not. Does James actually think that Nick Fuentes was serious when he advocated for burning women at the stake? Oh my God.
Modern detached indifference. They're just memeing, they're just trolling, they're just putting out Hitler stuff to get a rise. They don't really mean it. But they also would definitely understand from an operational perspective that what they're doing is moving the Overton window.
Yes.
What they're doing is recruiting members to them under this idea of, well, if we're going to have free speech, let's test the absolute boundaries of it, but not so much in a random way, but in a very specific way that pushes certain ideas that people might not have thought of. And somewhere in the middle of this woke right, you'll find characters who are taken up with philosophers such as Carl Schmitt, who a lot of people aren't familiar with. They get very upset when it's pointed out that he was given the title under Hitler's regime of the crown jurist of the Third Reich.
Who is James actually talking about here? I have no idea.
He was trying to stop Hitler from his rise before Hitler took the chancellery, I should say, in 1933, and that's true. And he seemed to be anti-communist and anti-fascist at the same time up to that point. But Hitler got power in 1933, and within weeks, Carl Schmitt was a Nazi, and he never recanted of any of that. And they like to point to the complicated historical contingencies that led him to take this choice by expedience, but that's no small choice. But Carl Schmitt's main philosophical ideas that they are in favor of, that he's put forth, are two. One is called the unbound executive. The executives should be unbound, or else they are not sovereign. Sovereign means that you are not bound, say, by rule of law. So they want an executive who isn't bound by a limitation on power, who can do what needs to be done in order to fight back their enemies, who in this case are primarily, as they say, communists, but they also explicitly blame classical liberals, as did Carl Schmitt, for many of the ills of society. It's a very common belief in this circle, not that it necessarily agrees.
Because classical liberalism allows the left to win, James. That is the entire fucking point. Classical liberalism allows the left to win. Classical liberalism does nothing to stop the left. There is not a single fucking classical liberal on the internet that has made any measurable progress to stopping the left. In fact, they're already... Konstantin Kisin just the other day, did you guys see this? Konstantin Kisin was like, guys, don't tell anyone, but woke has peaked. It's over. We won. I was like, bro. Konstantin Kisin literally lives in the United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom, I said this earlier, if you make a social media post about brown immigrants that the government doesn't like, you can literally go to jail. And you're telling me, Konstantin is like, guys, don't tell anyone, but we're winning. Like, fuck you, bro. Fuck you. That's what classical liberalism gets you. Classical liberalism gets you thrown in jail for posting a meme on your Facebook page, and the influencers that are supposed to be the ones that are going to save us all are like, guys, we're winning. Trust me, bro. Pinky swear we're winning. Don't listen to those people who tell you that it's not going away. It's going away. We promise. Oh, you got a visit from the cops because you posted a meme on Twitter? Oh, don't worry about that, guys. We're winning. These people are not serious people, and they do not take this problem seriously. And anyone can look at just reality and say that as long as classical liberalism has been used as the weapon to fight this problem, we have lost, and the left just continues to get more and more and more powerful.
Agrees with Carl Schmitt that, in fact, communism or Marxism is an outgrowth of classical liberalism,
yes,
which I don't think washes any more than the confusion about the different Scottish common sense realism versus the...
Trust me, bro. Trust me. James Lindsay swears that communism and socialism is not an outgrowth of classical liberalism. Pinky swear, trust me, bro. It just can't be. It just can't. That would ruin his entire grift, guys.
the Continental Enlightenments, I think it's equally confused. The second of Carl Schmitt's big ideas that he puts forth is called the friend-enemy distinction, and that's its own whole topic, a long podcast to get into, and I don't want to drag this out. But the friend-enemy distinction effectively says that in politics, at the end of the day, it all boils down, just like how in morality it all boils down to good versus evil, and in epistemology it all boils down to true versus false, and in ethics it all boils down to right versus wrong, and in aesthetics it all boils down to beautiful versus ugly. In politics it all boils down to friend versus enemy. So it's all about mutually, well, I don't know how to say this grammatically, it is all about polarized groups with mutual enmity that defines the political process, where the enmity is given as the division between friends and enemies, and an enemy is defined as a person or group that wishes to end your way of life, and friends are people who are willing to die in order to defend that with you. And Carl Schmitt's belief, and I disagree with it, I think in a sophisticated way, I've taken the time to study it. Carl Schmitt's view is that at the end of the day, all politics boils down to the friend-enemy distinction, and that his critique of classical liberalism, which is not based on the misunderstanding of the Enlightenment tradition, his critique of liberalism as a political philosophy is that liberalism removes the political from politics by trying to by taking violence off of the table, because the friend-enemy line is always underwritten by violence. So when you remove violence from the equation entirely, all you're left with is talking and talking and talking, and that prevents you from being able to stop an enemy who's sufficiently intolerant. But he says that this is rather than saying that this is a hard question of the paradox of tolerance, which is what I believe it actually is, he answers that this is a intrinsic internal contradiction of liberalism that makes it unworkable. It's very common to find somewhere in this woke right spectrum, also usually adjacent to the people who are big fans of Carl Schmitt, but not always overlapping, is so-called Straussians, who are followers of the philosophy of Leo Strauss. I'm not going to get into Straussianism, not for any better reason that I don't actually know it very deeply yet. I know some broad themes, but Strauss seems, in my opinion, to reinvigorate a dialectical approach to the movement of history, talking about it moving in waves or phases that incorporate past phases and transform them to a new form. And I'm immediately skeptical of that. But the Straussians have profoundly deep criticisms of classical liberalism that I think are misguided, and I've heard some of those criticisms, but that's not what it's for. But I've given this broad mixture of views that fit in the woke right, and this is parallel to how the woke left both was, especially before, we'll use 2014 and 15 as the marker, especially before then, but also still afterwards. You have kind of milquetoast progressives who think they're just doing the right thing. You have old hippies from the...
Does James think that woke started in 2014 and 2015? Is that what he said?
'15 has
We'll use
the marker.
We'll use 2014 and 15 as the marker. What's wrong with this? I'm not even going to say what I'm thinking. I'm going to ask my chat. What's wrong with this? Well, he's also wrong about that then. Do you want me I will list times when it was visible before that. What's wrong with this? You're telling me 2014 and 2015 was the marker of when woke began? Do you want me to tell you what was the first marker of when woke really began? Do you know what it was? I know what it was. No, he's not referring to academic papers. No, he's not. There were woke academic papers for... Yes. Now, Obama was not the start of Marxism in the United States, to be very, very clear. But when Barack Obama was elected president, what the left says is we transitioned into a post-racial society. So this doesn't actually really have much to do with Obama. It doesn't have to do with his policies. It doesn't have anything to do with that. What the left says, and you can look at ChatGPT this shit, fact check me. The left says that when Barack Obama was elected, we transitioned into a post-racial society. That means that is when they stopped using racism to refer to skin color, and they started referring to systemic racism, the system. That was the transitionary point. It wasn't fucking 2014 and 2015. It was when Barack Obama was elected president and the United States entered a post-racial society. This is when you saw mentions of racism in the New York Times skyrocket, in the Washington Post skyrocket. It was all because of this. This is when you saw Occupy Wall Street, which was one of their first big coming out parties against the elites, literally against capitalism, in the bastion of fucking capitalism. This is when whiteness started meaning capitalism. That's when that happened. Anyone who does not understand that does not understand the left. Up until that point, the election of Barack Obama was the completion of the long march through the institutions. And that was when they transitioned into starting to get really, really destructive in society. And I've written about this. I wrote about this. I'm writing about this as part of my book. I have a whole chapter about this in my book. You can read it on speaksocialist.substack.com. I've talked about the 4 goals of the woke left multiple times. No. You're not listening. You're not listening. You're not listening. The 4 goals of the woke left are always the same. Gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. They're always trying to achieve one or more of those 4 goals. But those are not just goals. It's also a framework for a timeline. Because you have to gain power before you can destabilize the system. You have to destabilize the system before you can attack capitalism. You have to attack capitalism before you can usher in your Marxist utopia. So they are always trying to do as many of those 4 goals as they can at once, but they've had to phase out the aggressive implementation of those tactics. So for about 60 years, from the Frankfurt School landing in the United States at Columbia University, up until Barack Obama got elected president, that was where they were focusing on gaining as much power as possible. That is where they were focusing on the takeover of the institutions. Barack Obama gets elected president, you literally have a black man in the highest position in the country. You can no longer argue that you haven't gained as much power as you can, right? That was the moment, and this doesn't come from me, this comes from Cheryl Harris, who wrote the paper Whiteness is Property, and I have her on video saying this. She talks about how Barack Obama, and you can ChatGPT this stuff too, just look it up in ChatGPT. Ask ChatGPT, when did we become a post-racial society? And it's going to say when Barack Obama was elected president. And by the way, guys, always fact check me on this. Fact check everything I say. Put it into ChatGPT, see what ChatGPT says. It's the greatest resource. Like you guys can complain about woke AI all you want, and there are very real. I got into a whole argument with AI the other night about whether or not I could call something Jewish for real. So I'm not saying there aren't problems with AI, but there is so much power in AI to be able to break down any of these concepts, to figure out how to explain these concepts to people really easily. Anyway, when we entered a post-racial society, that is when they started attacking the definition of racism. It's not to say they weren't anti-capitalist before that. They've been anti-capitalist explicitly since the 1960s. So it's not to say that there was no anti-capitalist sentiment before that. But, like I said, there are different phases of this. 2008, when Obama was elected, is the transition point from when they were focusing on taking over the institutions, because they literally took over the most powerful institution in the land, and that is when they focused on creating as much destabilization as possible. This is when you saw protests skyrocket, starting with Occupy Wall Street. All of this is part of a much bigger picture. Again, I've laid this all out in the book that I'm working on right now. You see protests starting to skyrocket on college campuses around issues of race, around issues of social justice. Do you know what else started to happen at exactly the same time that Barack Obama took office, in around 2009, 2010, that time frame? Equity departments started getting created in every single public school system in this country. I want to challenge everyone right now. Go onto the school district website in your town, in your city. The school district website, not the school website, the district, okay? I want you to go and type equity into the search bar on your school district website. Equity programs started getting formalized in United States school districts around 2009, 2010. Equity means Marxism. That means when they transitioned into their post-racial society, one of the very first things they did was start formalizing Marxist indoctrination in schools as an official fucking department. That's not to say they weren't doing it before then, and some cities certainly had it before then, but 2009 is around when these programs started popping up everywhere. So what does that mean? Right now, currently, today, we are graduating the first high school and college classes of students that have been almost entirely educated in public schools in which they were getting fed equity programming as part of their curriculum since the time they were 5 years old. These are fully indoctrinated classes of students. That's not to say they got all of them, but they got a lot. And a lot of this stuff, equity is code for anti-capitalism, guys. Equity is code for Marxism. Equity literally means flattening the hierarchy. That's what Marxism is. We right now, the students that are graduating from high school, the students that are graduating from college, they have had this shit in their curriculum since they were in kindergarten. And it's not informalized like, guys, we're going to do the equity curriculum now. It's dripped out bit by bit across all of their classes to the point where they don't even know it. I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat saying, yeah, I found the equity department in my school district. I bet you did, because they all have them, all of them. And now look at how long they've been doing equity reports. You can probably go back for years and years and years. This is in every school district in the country. Every one, even in red states. This is where Marxist indoctrination comes from in school. Okay? I'm not saying they all started in exactly 2009. Again, a lot. Well, you're in Chicago. Yeah, Jane is in Chicago, 2004. Exactly. There are some cities that had it earlier. There are some that maybe got started a little bit later. I'm talking as a general rule. So what does that mean? We now have an entire generation of students that's been educated entirely in this bullshit. What that means is it's not changing this time, guys. It's not changing this time. Conservatives like to think they'll grow out of it. You're not a liberal when you're young, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative by the time you're 30, you have no brain. We are not dealing with the same challenge as when I was in school. I graduated high school in 1999. I graduated college in 2003. I wasn't educated in this bullshit. Even in my graduate programs, I wasn't educated in this bullshit. I made a specific concerted effort to not have to deal with this. Kids today that are graduating today, they didn't go through the same educational program that their parents went through. It is completely infiltrated. And so a lot of this content was delivered to them without anyone knowing what was going on. They're not going back this time. They've been indoctrinated into a cult ideology since they were 5 years old. Anything that you hear before you're 8 years old, it cements in your brain and it will be in there forever, unless you make a really big effort to get it to go away. So now we're starting to move into phase number 3. They have spent the last 15 years, almost 20 years, destabilizing the system. Now we're starting to move into the more concerted attacks on capitalism. This is why, by the way, we're starting to see them say capitalism more and more and more and more and more. We see them say capitalism all the time. Like a year ago, 2 years ago, people would say to me, I'd be saying, they're attacking capitalism, they're attacking capitalism. People would be like, Carlin, what the fuck are you talking about? They never say the word capitalism. We see them say capitalism all the time now. Because now we're moving into the phase where they are making concerted attacks on capitalism by name, because in order to get to the Marxist utopia, they need to undermine public faith in the current system that we have. The next stop is the violent overthrow of the U.S. government. And I've laid this all out on my website. I've done other videos on this. Yeah, they say we're in late stage capitalism. That's what they call it. I wrote a whole chapter in it in the book I'm working on. 2 chapters, actually. Because there's different ways to address this. That's what we're dealing with. This did not start in 2014 and 2015. Bro. If you think this has anything to do with CRT at all, you are way behind. I know you mean well. You are way. CRT is a low-level delivery mechanism for all this bullshit. And by the way, if you guys are under any delusion that CRT is not being taught in public schools, that's another bullshit lie that conservative propagandists sold you. CRT is taught in every public school all over the country. Equity is code for CRT. CRT was never about white people. CRT was about systemic racism. Systemic racism is code for capitalism. Equity is the antidote to systemic racism. Equity means Marxism. Every single school district in the country that has an equity department or an equity program is teaching fucking CRT. And I'll tell you, every single school district in Florida has one of these. Every single school district in Texas has one of these. Every single school district in every red state has an equity department. So anyone who thinks that they got CRTs out of the school because we're winning, pinky swear, trust me, bro. We're not going to let them be racist towards white people. It was never fucking about that. It was never about that. The right didn't understand the problem they were fighting, and so they utterly failed to protect people from anything. Every school district that has an equity program or an equity office or an equity anything is teaching CRT. Because you can't have one without having the other. That's what the definition is. So, anyone who believes James is bullshit, that this all just started in 2014 and 2015, this is why the right loses. because the right does not take the time to understand at a deep level the problem that they are fighting. And so because they don't bother to understand the problem that they are fighting, they do the wrong thing over and over and over and over and over again, and then they high-five each other and they say, we're winning, guys. Woke is gone, don't you know? Woke is on the decline. No, it's not. And it's all your kids that are going to suffer for it.
Especially before then, but also still afterwards. You have kind of milquetoast progressives who think they're just doing the right thing. You have old hippies from the old civil rights era. You also have hardened communists and very radical actors. You also have some just kind of left-wing anarchists. You have this very kind of broad, messed up coalition. You also have...
James thinks that communists are different from left-wing anarchists. Pop quiz from my chat. Are communists different than left-wing anarchists? What a moron. I never thought I'd learn something so insightful on a James's retarded stream. And yeah, exactly. Communists and left-wing anarchists are the same thing. When they say left-wing anarchists, they mean overthrowing the United States, the capitalist U.S. government. That's what they mean.
Have basically kind of a deracinated or a subverted liberal as a generic member of this woke left who's taken on woke ideals, even though if you were to pin them down, they don't actually agree with them. It's a very broad concept, but we still have this notion of a label called woke that fits them. And the reason that we adopt woke, from my perspective, isn't just because they used it as a slang term for themselves, then we took it up, which is true, but is also because it's very descriptive of what's going on. And what's going on in the woke left is that they believe that they have woken up to a belief or a structure, a hidden structure to how society is organized. And
what is the hidden structure? What is the hidden structure that the woke left has woken up to? Pop quiz for the chat. What is the hidden structure, as James calls it, that the woke left believe they've woken up to? Capitalism, 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 capitalism. Capitalism is, God damn it, people keep calling me. Capitalism is the hidden structure. Capitalism, 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 capitalism. It means communist. Left-wing anarchist means communist. Capitalism, it does start with a C. Well, the patriarchy was created by capitalism. Capitalism, 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 capitalism. That's the hidden structure. That's what they've woken up to.
Operates. In other words, I'm analyzing and using the word woke at the level of operating system, how it runs. And what they believe is they've woken up to the true nature of reality, which is that powerful groups, powerful interest groups have lied to the world about how the world works. And everybody is misled and operating under a false consciousness, but they have woke up to this and have done the analysis and presented an alternative view of how the world really proceeded in history and works in theory and in practice. And they act upon that awakened status that other people outside don't have, and they claim the basis of their epistemic authority from knowing the true hidden history. And this is the key point that makes it woke. You woke up to that which they have hidden from you. And
this is James doing 19 levels of mental gymnastics to call everything Gnostic. We're about to get a mention of Gnostic anytime now, I promise you. James is literally saying, guys, exactly. Alex knows exactly where this is going. James is literally saying, guys, the left believes that they have hidden knowledge about how the world works, even though this is not hidden knowledge. The left talks about this all the time. The left talks about how capitalism is causing all the problems in the world all the time. It's not fucking hidden knowledge if we have them on video talking about this all the fucking time. But no, James would be like, guys, it's all Gnostic. It's all Gnostic. Don't you know the left believes they have hidden knowledge that no one else has access to? Then why do we have them on video saying it over and over and over and over and over again all the goddamn time? And he's using the same thing on the right. He's like, these woke right morons, they believe they have hidden knowledge about how the Jews are controlling the world. Bro, they talk about it all the time too. There's no hidden knowledge. There's no hidden knowledge at all. This is just James making shit up so that he can call everything Gnostic.
For them, with CRT, the white people hid the true history of race and racism and its true practice and purpose. For Marxists, the bourgeois class has hidden the true nature of economics and social order.
He actually separated Marxists from critical race theorists. James is presenting Marxism and critical race theory as though they are two different things. Guys, what ideology does critical race theory advance? What is the purpose of critical race theory? I'll tell you, the purpose of critical race theory is to identify areas of systemic racism. Systemic racism means the system that upholds racism. The system that upholds racism is capitalism. CRT is Marxism. CRT is Marxism, motherfucker. They are not two different things. They are the same thing.
Organization to their own benefit from the proletariat. And we could go down the list. I think that 2 examples are sufficient. Maybe we could do...
Listen, Mister, I think you're new here. You've got a lot to learn. I hope you come back and learn with us because you've got a lot of misperceptions that are just not hinged into reality. But that's not your fault. That's the fault of the people who taught you. That's the fault of the influencers who have lied to you. And I hope you come back and learn with us because you've just got some incorrect perceptions.
Queer theory, the normal have hidden the true nature of of normalcy.
Oh, come on. Now James is saying that queer theory is different than Marxism. No, it's not. It's the same thing.
From the proletariat. And we could go down the list. I think that 2 examples are sufficient. Maybe we could do queer theory. The normal have hidden the true nature of normalcy and legitimacy from the abnormal or deviant or queer to their exclusion from the fruits of society and so on and so forth. And thus they become the awakened revolutionary vanguard and they know how society actually works and they claim an epistemic authority over others who are not trapped in that so-called false consciousness that they, the powers, the ruling classes have installed in them. And my contention is that the entire spectrum of people that I described on the woke right are not merely providing different conservative theories about how the world works, whether those are, relatively mainstream conservative paleo-conservatism like Tucker Carlson, or those are a little less mainstream like the Straussians or like Burke, or if they're rather extreme, like taking up with Julius Evola or proto-fascists or Franco or whatever else you want, or whatever the hell Nick Fuentes is doing. And, there's a variety of other views in between. What they all share in common is that they, whether it's the intelligence apparatus, whether it's the Jews, whoever it is, have actually hidden reality from us.
Again, James is simping for the intelligence apparatus. This is the second time in this podcast James is like, you're on the woke right if you mistrust the intelligence apparatus. Like, put aside the Jew stuff for a second, because I understand that not everyone has wrapped their head around that. I understand not everyone agrees with that. Let's just take the Jew stuff and put it aside. James has literally told us twice in this podcast, guys, it's totally fine to trust the United States intelligence apparatus. The FBI would never do anything, bro. The FBI is totally on your side. The CIA is totally on your side. Don't ever question the intelligence apparatus in the United States. If you do, you're the woke right. Are you shitting me? Are you shitting me? How does anyone listen to this and not understand what's going on? Why is James literally simping for the feds? I mean, have you guys, like, I have not in recent memory heard someone that claims to be on the right simping for the feds to this degree. Like, he can call Nick Fuentes a fed all he wants. Nick Fuentes doesn't simp for the feds. James is literally sucking the cock of the CIA right now. Are you shitting me? He glows, man. He fucking glows.
And they have awakened or woke up to that true reality and a true alternative theory of how the world works and operates. And they claim epistemic.
Hang on, we got a super chat from Parrot Girl. Carlin, I'm no expert, but as a casual member, you've taught me more than ever, and that's after listening to Rush back in the day and any conservative media. Thank you. Parrot Girl, that's a really, really nice compliment, and I really do appreciate it, and we love you, and we love it when you come around. And I know I create a lot of content, so you can't always watch everything I do, but hey, I really appreciate it. Thank you for the wonderful content or comment. Guys, if you want to learn more about the left than anywhere else on the internet, I will teach anyone. I really will. Come to the streams that we do about the left. Come to Socialism Saturday. I will break it all down for you. Go to my Substack, carlin.substack.com. Sign up for my socialist the Speak Socialist Substack, where I'm writing my next book. I put all this information out there. I spend all my time breaking down this ideology in plain English, not what James does. And I do it all to be able to teach people what's going on, because James has utterly failed in this regard. Most of the conservative right has utterly failed in this regard. I'm doing the very best I can. I'm completely 100% funded by you guys. So if you see fit to support the work I'm doing, sign up on the Substack for a membership, buy some merch in the merch store, send in a super chat, do whatever. Like, I really do appreciate it, because you guys keep me going. You guys allow me to do this, and it is a privilege to do this. And my only job is to show up and to tell you the truth and to show you the receipts. And you can always decide for yourself. And I'm going to be very, very clear. I do not care what your political affiliation is. I don't care. I don't care if you're the farthest to the far right. I don't care if you're a literal Nazi. I have literal National Socialists who watch my channel. I don't care if you're a libertarian. I don't care if you're politically homeless. I don't care if you're a MAGA voter. I don't care if you're a conservative. I don't care if you are a disaffected lefty. I don't care if you're a socialist or a communist, as long as you're not going to come and disrupt things. I do have socialists and communists who watch my stream. I don't care. Everyone is welcome here. As long as you want to learn what the left is doing, everyone is welcome here. And I'm not going to shit talk people because I don't agree with them politically. We have real problems in this world. We have real problems that require real solutions, and we need to stop fucking around and doing all this bullshit that has just allowed these problems to perpetuate in the first place. So I appreciate you, Paragirl Tattoo. Thank you so much.
Authority that they can use to advance their cause and silence others in order to push it forward. Terms that attach to these people can be anything from America First, which is complicated because it means other things, but also
it doesn't actually. It's very specific.
A post-liberal right would be okay, except it's kind of too many syllables. Nobody really knows what.
A post-liberal right. Is the right supposed to be liberal? Are there any conservatives here that want the right to be liberal? Because again, I keep telling you guys, the real definition that James has for the woke right is anything that is not classically liberal. And he just said, well, guys, you know, post-liberal right doesn't really make sense for the woke right. When the fuck was the right ever liberal? When was that the point? James is a disaffected lefty. He is a disaffected lefty atheist that has learned nothing since he left the left.
Liberal means post is confusing and there's a hyphen. That's usually not a good sign for that post-liberal right feels like regressive left to me, and it's descriptive sort of and is not going to stick. But they are in general skeptical of, if not outright hostile to, liberalism writ large, but also including American liberalism, and also frequently, therefore, including the Constitution. And I'm not saying, just to be very clear, that Tucker Carlson hates the Constitution with this. I'm just saying that he's somewhere in the, we'll call it a rainbow, the spectrum of woke right views, many of which, perhaps not his, and likely perhaps not his, do not include disdain or giving up on the Constitution as it is. But because they feel as though there is an oppressive power out there that has hidden the real truth from us, the epistemic authority of all woke comes from the belief that that which has been hidden from us is most true. That which they don't want us to think or believe is most true. That which is most...
James, how has any of this been hidden? I keep going back to this. James seems to think that no one has access to this knowledge. We all have access to this knowledge. It's right there if you want it. It's not hidden.
Sincerely held, just like Jean-Jacques Rousseau, in faith is likely to be more true than that which is less sincerely held, because they think that this is all done cynically by the powers. So sincerity becomes a measurement of truth, but more importantly, that which has been hidden from them, that which they don't want us to know. The problem with that, just to make it very clear, is nobody wants to know wrong information, and nobody in a position of educational power wants anybody to know wrong information if it can be avoided. Of course, we all have wrong information, but the idea is to minimize how wrong we are, not maximize it. We all are, they're right, by the way, in that they don't trust our lying, manipulative, mostly Marxist expert class or self-serving expert class. They're right in that. But the thing is there are ideas out there that they don't want us to know, or that they disagree with, or label misinformation because they are wrong. And then there are ones that they actually are trying to suppress because they are right. And it's, you can't use, they criticize.
You are allowed to consider ideas that turn out to be wrong. Why are we hiding any ideas at all? We are allowed to consider ideas that turn out to be wrong. I grew up on the left. I was a Democrat for 20 fucking years. I considered and worked my way through a lot of fucking wrong ideas. We are allowed to consider crazy ideas. We are allowed to consider outlandish ideas. Why does James want those ideas hidden entirely? Because that's what he just said, by the way. He's like, some ideas are hidden because, they're unpopular, and some ideas are hidden because they're wrong. I'm sorry. James is literally the one advocating for hidden knowledge. Let's listen to that again. He is literally advocating for hiding ideas that he himself considers to be misinformation and wrong.
Manipulative, mostly Marxist expert class or self-serving expert class. They're right in that. But the thing is there are ideas out there that they don't want us to know, or that they disagree with, or label misinformation because they are wrong. And then there are ones that they actually are trying to suppress because they are right. And
there are ideas out there that are labeled as misinformation because they're wrong, and then there are ideas that they're trying to suppress because they're right. We shouldn't be suppressing any ideas. That's actually, by the way, the classical liberal position. We should not be suppressing any ideas. The real classical liberal position, not James's fucking position, the real classical liberal position is ideas exist in the free marketplace, and we discuss them and we debate them. And I'm sorry, no idea should be off limits. No idea should be off the table for discussion. And if you have facts and evidence that counter that idea, then show up and have the fucking discussion, or shut the fuck up. There should be no meme that is off the table. There should be no fucking Hitler joke that is off the table. There should be no idea that is so controversial that Tucker Carlson is not allowed to interview a historian on that fact. There should be no idea that Nick Fuentes should not be allowed to discuss on his show. If you don't like the idea, either show up and argue it with facts and evidence, or turn it off and stop listening to it. But James Lindsay is not the person that should be deciding here are what ideas we're allowed to consider and here are the ideas that we need to hide under lock and key because they're misinformation and they might wrongly inform people. Fuck you.
You can't use they criticize you for believing this as a litmus test because it applies to both of those things. You could believe something genuinely crazy or that is genuinely a foreign influence operation. And, the powers that be will say you shouldn't believe that. And you could also believe something that is absolutely true about, say, mRNA vaccines or gene therapies, that they will also say you shouldn't believe that. And so you don't have a sufficient litmus test. In other words, they have a very impoverished epistemology, and their epistemology leads, which is the theory.
Let's be very clear about the information that James wants to keep hidden. James doesn't want people discussing whether or not Israel owns and runs the U.S. government. This is the idea he wants hidden. Now, you might agree with this idea, and you might not agree with that idea. I'm not going to try to convince anyone. I think everyone should do their own research. I think everyone should come up with their own thoughts on the matter. I'm not going to advocate for or against. But what I will say is that we should absolutely be allowed to consider the idea that Israel owns and runs the U.S. government. And the fact that we keep giving them billions and billions and billions of our dollars when we get nothing in return for that. It makes it a fair argument to have, maybe is there any there to this? Is this true? Why are we giving them so much of our money? When U.S. citizens are struggling, when they're having their homes destroyed by natural disasters and we only give them $750, why are we giving Israel another $10 fucking billion? Why? That's our money. It's not their money.
Of knowledge, and that leads their bid or claim for authority, and they then proceed in the usual way that the woke proceed. I didn't even get into all the parallels, by the way: victim culture, manipulation of language, outright lying, lies that would be fact-checked as misleading, radical splintering, wedge operations.
Oh my God,
you go down the list,
but
the orientation toward victimhood by this power that's suppressing a truth that they've woken up to, and the measurement of that truth is that's what they don't want you to believe is the hallmark.
Do you know how crazy it is that Israel owns foreign governments? Do you know how crazy that is? It's such a crazy idea that when Candace Owens started talking about the Frankist, Australia decided to ban her from the country. Do you guys hear about this? Candace Owens is banned from Australia because they deem her too anti-Semitic to enter the country. Now, I don't like Candace Owens. I don't support Candace Owens. I think anyone that goes near Candace Owens is asking for a world of fucking trouble. But Israel is so not controlling foreign governments that Australia banned Candace Owens for questioning Israel.
Characteristic and why I've called them the woke right. This podcast has already gone too long, so I'm going to wrap it up and say all I'm saying with this podcast is that this exists. It is at least partially extraordinarily likely that it is infiltrated directly into the right by the woke left, specifically to create a ditch, and it will
Now we're getting to the real heart of it. Nick Fuentes is a leftist, according to James. Nick Fuentes is a tool of the Marxist left, according to James Lindsay. I am a tool of the Marxist left, according to James Lindsay. Does anyone know how fucked up that is? James is like, the left is literally pushing this on. Are you serious, James? Are you serious? I create more anti-communist content every single week than James does in a month. And you're telling me I'm a tool of the left because I don't bend the knee to your classical liberal bullshit? Whatever, James. What fucking ever. Everyone is a leftist except for James, who is an actual leftist. He's an actual fucking liberal. He's actually on the left. But no, it's everyone else. It's everyone else that is the secret fucking leftist.
Lead, whether intentionally or unintentionally. It's filled with lots of people who are fellow travelers, who are not bad actors, but I guarantee you there are bad actors involved, and it will mislead the conservative movement, and you will know them by their fruit, their primary fruit, which is that they are overwhelmingly divisive in every space they come into, and send conservative operations into disarray and fragmentation. So I urge you to be more serious about the fact that the right wing is also infiltrated. It's also organically coming up with some of its own bad ideas in desperation. I'm not accusing any individual in this case, with the possible exception of Nick Fuentes, of being a likely bad actor. I know there are some, I don't know who they are, and I think that you should be circumspect about that as well. But you should also not be so naive as to think, well, if I can't name one for sure, then they aren't here. The right wing is most definitely infiltrated by bad actors and foreign influence operators and other things, just like the left would operate that way. And you should be aware of that. But this woke right phenomenon, if it's not on your radar now, here's my opinion. In 2014, I had a feeling all this was going to go really bad. Everybody was saying it was just on college campuses. It's just a bunch of kids. Don't worry about it. And I was like, no. And here we are 10 years later, and it's been the defining noise and disaster of our time. And I feel like it's 2014 again, and we're about to get slung into a poisoned area where the woke right fragments and toxicifies what we consider to be the anti-woke movement, or the right wing, or the conservative movement more broadly. And we'd better wake up, and we'd better...
The whole idea of the anti-woke movement is a joke, by the way. I hope everyone understands that. The so-called anti-woke movement is just a bunch of people on Twitter yelling and screaming about whatever they're outraged about on any given day. Most people involved in the so-called, and I've been around this space for a long time, most of the people involved in the so-called anti-woke movement are just people that are out for themselves, that are trying to make as much money as they can by sticking to a very specific and a very controlled script where they are allowed to say certain things and they are not allowed to say certain things. And they get all shined up like a nice shiny penny, and they go on these shows and they testify in front of Congress on occasion. And they say all the approved talking points, and they never deviate, and they call anyone who questions them on their bullshit crazy. They smear them. They engage in the so-called anti-woke movement engages in just as much cancellation as the left does, even sometimes more. If you deviate from the approved talking points at all, you will find yourself on the outs very, very, very quickly. And that is a lesson I learned from direct experience, and it's why I operate completely independently from all of them. Also, I'm a lot smarter than them, and my content's better than them, and they're all fucking jealous because we actually know what the fuck is going on, and they're just reading on Twitter all day, every day. They have no clue. They have no clue.
Better be ready to cut it off at the pass, because otherwise it's going to take on a momentum and a life of its own around some precipitating activity or event, which I would be very likely to say is in the next 6 to 12 months, probably 3 to 6 months, and they are going to define how you have to be in order to be a conservative, or else you're not truly conservative. You're a neocon, you're Jewish, you're the other F word, the one that means gay. You're a lot of things. If you don't go along with them,
James
you're a libtard, you're whatever. They've got every.
Well, James has also
I'm woke. I'm
internet.
Communist. I'm on the left, according to all of these people.
You are,
so
James. True.
Be aware. This is happening. It's rapidly rising. It's rapidly growing. We can still mostly derail the train, but not if you don't believe it's happening, and not if it pulls you in. So please be aware. Please be on the lookout. Please try to get discerning about this issue, and please have the courage to stand up to it when and where you see it.
No, James is wrong. There's nothing that's going to derail this train. Because you want to know why? Because at the end of the day, the truth will win out. I used to question whether or not the truth would win out. I really did. And what I've seen in the last year shows me that if you're patient and you bide your time and you wait, it might not happen in the time that you want it to. And God knows I'm more impatient than most. But eventually, the truth will always win out. There is no fucking derailing this train. And I say that, you know, as someone who, like, again, I'm operating on my own. I'm doing my stuff on my own. I don't really want to be involved in any of these groups because anytime I have involvement with groups, it always ends up like bullshit always ensues. However, I can also look at a landscape and I can see where the momentum is and I can see where the momentum is not. And there ain't no derailing this train. James can call everyone as many names as he wants. He can make up this fake bullshit narrative. But the fact of the matter is people have been seeing through James's bullshit for a long time now. There are a lot of people who've been pissed off at him for a long time. And my read on this is James flailing about because he knows his grift is almost fucking over. And it's his own damn fault, man. It's his own damn fault. All he had to do was stay hinged into reality. That's it. He failed. He got himself addicted to Twitter. He got himself addicted to outrage. And now there's all sorts of crazy nonsense coming out of him. It's been coming out of him for about 2 years now. People who are not addicted to Twitter and not addicted to outrage can see what's happening very, very clearly. All right, guys, I think I'm going to call it there. I do want to watch the other James video at some point this week. I do want to go back and watch this theoretical communism thing. But I've been talking for 2 hours, and guess what? I have another show tonight. So I'm doing a show later with Jennifer. And we are going to be talking about the origin of Halloween. And so you can come back and join us at 9 p.m. This is a non-political show. It's just for fun. And we're going to be doing Disenrage at 9 p.m. tonight. We're going to talk about the origin of Halloween. And Jennifer is a witch. And she's going to be able to give us some good information on this. And so you can come back at 9 p.m. in about a couple hours and we'll be doing this show. They are doing exactly what they're accusing everyone else of doing, which is defining the right post-Trump. They are terrified that the national anti-Zionist young folk are going to define what conservative is. Yeah, I think that that's actually very true, Lit Logos. Thank you for that. So you guys can come back at 9 p.m. tonight, learn about the origin of Halloween. I'm going to take a little break between now and then. But as a reminder, guys, if you're looking for the chapter of the book that I was talking about in terms of the progression of the here it is. The timeline of the Marxist takeover. This is where I laid out everything that I was talking about earlier in terms of like, here was the time frame for the long march through the institutions. Here was the time frame for the destabilization. Here's when we moved into a post-racial society. I lay it all out in this chapter. This is going to be a chapter in my forthcoming book. You can actually read it right now, the draft of it, up on speaksocialist.substack.com. And this is where I'm publishing all the forthcoming chapters of my next book. And if you guys want to support the work I'm doing and get access to chapters literally as I am writing it, head over to speaksocialist.substack.com. It is a completely premium Substack. It's a standalone thing. It's $10 a month, $100 a year. I'm going to be basically busting out a lot of books moving forward, guys. That is part of the plan. And you will get to read those books as I am writing them when you support my work because you guys are funding my ability to write this book, which I really, really do appreciate. Also, as a reminder, this is your last chance in the Unwoke Art Store. If you want to get some sweet, sweet merch, you've got but a couple days left to get the special limited edition Halloween collection. We've got Marxism is Coming for Your Soul. We've got Collectivism. We've got Everyone is Equal Until They're Not. And we've got the Marxist Utopia of the Dead. All these designs are available on t-shirts, on sweatshirts, on pint glasses, on mugs. There are different colors available. You can get the sticker pack if you want. But come November 1st, these items are no longer going to be in the store. So check them out now. They are limited edition. They will only be available for 2 more days. And so go get yourself some merch, support the work I'm doing. I really do appreciate it. Guys, that is all I have for right now. I'm going to go take a little break. I'm going to be back in a couple hours. We're going to talk about Halloween. We're going to do something fun. I appreciate all of you. I will see you either at 9 p.m. or I'll see you at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Take care, guys, and we'll see you next time.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Could you give me some idea?
I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that?
People dislike me because I am not completely like them. I am trying to do with my life something which few people try to do, and this influences my thinking and consequently my action.
What is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.